All right, we are having our Highland Park Planning Board meeting for August 8th, 2024. This meeting is called to order. Annual notice of the meeting was provided to the Home News Tribune, the Star Ledger, and the Highland Park Planet on January 23rd, 2024. In addition, notice of this meeting via Zoom was emailed to the Home News Tribune, the Star Ledger, and the Highland Park Planet on January 23rd, 2024, and was posted on the Borough website at www.hpborough.com and on the bulletin board at Borough Hall at 221 South Fifth Avenue, Highland Park, New Jersey, and has remained continuously posted as required by law. Fire exits are to the left and right of chambers here, and as a reminder to everyone to please speak into the microphone when you are talking so that the recordings can pick up on you. So let's take roll call, please.
Ms. Hand?
Here.
Mr. Eisdorfer?
Here.
Ms. Hadhazy?
Here.
Mr. Linares?
Here.
Mr. Malay?
Here.
Mr. Perlman?
Here.
Mr. Stern Cardinal?
Here.
Mr. Williams?
Here.
Mr. Lynch?
Here.
Mr. Cosenza?
Here.
Mr. Koch?
Here.
That's it.
Thank you very much. All right, we have 3 items on our agenda tonight. I'm going to switch up the order just a little bit and start with the 2 resolutions sent to us from council. The first one being a resolution from Borough Council of the Borough of Highland Park authorizing the planning board to conduct a preliminary investigation to determine if block 2201 lots 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 46, 47, and 48 constitute an area in need of redevelopment with powers of eminent domain pursuant to local redevelopment housing law, NJSA 40A:12A-1 et sec, and authorizing professional services agreement with Looney Ricks Kiss to conduct the area in need of redevelopment study. So this is a directive sent to us from council to undertake this study, right, Matt?
Yes.
So with this, there isn't anything to have public comment on because we are simply undertaking the resolution that council has directed us to undertake, right?
Correct.
All right, so that I think we just need a motion to undertake the resolution from council, right?
So moved.
Motion by Pedro,
Second.
seconded by Kalidra. Do we take a roll call vote or a voice vote?
Local.
Can we take a roll call on the vote, please?
Yes. Mr. Eisdorfer?
Yes.
Ms. Hadhazy?
Yes.
Mr. Linares?
Yes.
Mr. Malay?
Yes.
Mr. Perlman?
Yes.
Mr. Stern Cardinal?
Yes.
Mr. Williams?
Yes.
Ms. Hand?
Yes. And that'll take us to the second resolution, which is pretty much identical to the previous one with different blocks and lots. It's a resolution from Borough Council of the Borough of Highland Park authorizing the planning board to conduct a preliminary investigation to determine if block 1704 lots 43, 46, and 49 constitute an area in need of redevelopment with powers of eminent domain pursuant to local redevelopment and housing law, NJSA 40A:12A-1 et sec, and authorizing a professional services agreement with Looney Ricks Kiss to conduct the area in need of redevelopment study. So can I get a motion to undertake the resolution from Borough Council? Motion by Pedro,
Second.
seconded by Kalidra. Can we take another roll call vote, please?
Mr. Eisdorfer?
Yes.
Ms. Hadhazy?
Yes.
Mr. Linares?
Yes.
Mr. Malay?
Yes.
Mr. Perlman?
Yes.
Mr. Stern Cardinal?
Yes.
Mr. Williams?
Yes.
Ms. Hand?
Yes. All right. That'll take us to the bulk of the rest of this evening's presentation, which will be a consistency review on ordinance number 24-2089, an ordinance of the Borough Council of Highland Park authorizing adoption of the quote Upper Raritan Avenue redevelopment plan pursuant to local redevelopment and housing law, and so forth. Our job tonight is to determine if the ordinance as presented to us is not inconsistent with our town's master plan. For those of you following along at home, our town's master plan can always be found at www.hpborough.com under the master plan tab. And with that, I'm going to turn this over to Chris Cosenza, our planner, to give us an overview of what's in the ordinance.
Thank you. First, I will share my screen. Pretty good.
Yeah.
Thank you. First of all, overall, thank you for taking action on the first two items. That means it's 2 more projects to do. And then hopefully we get 1 completed. So that's good progress, right? So I will start with the APs for this project, for the Upper Raritan Avenue redevelopment plan. So this actually started back in 2021. The borough was approached by a couple interested property owners and developers. So what can they do with their properties within the Upper Raritan corridor? And it had to be close together. So the borough council decided to initiate a redevelopment plan. First, a concept plan study sort to see what really fits in and prepare a plan for those blocks. And I'll get into detail where they're located. Normally it doesn't take this long to put together a redevelopment plan. I would say, to be honest, there's lots of fits and starts with this particular one because it wasn't a high priority, so to speak, only because there was so much activity going on downtown. Other studies being made, other plans, and so we actually had to re-up a new contract in 2023 to really get this plan to completion. But don't take that to think that this is a typical process to complete a plan in 3 years. If you read through the report, you'll understand that it's not that complex. And if you really did read the report, you'll see that it's extremely consistent with the master plan, which I'll get into in some detail later. So in terms of the overview presentation, the presentation I'll give you tonight. I'll give you an overview, generally where we are with the redevelopment plan procedure, some description about the property area, project area, some existing condition, just for background purposes, really what the vision is for this redevelopment plan, and then some plan requirements, not with regards to exact all the components of the plan that's in the document, but mainly the zoning for the property, how that's different than what's in the underlying zoning. So, generally speaking, we are in the northeast portion of the community on Upper Raritan Avenue, Route 27. It is bisected by South 11th Avenue with South 10th to the bottom of the slide there, or to the west, and Maryland Avenue to the east. These are 2 full block faces facing on Route 27. And where we are in the procedure, as you know, Borough Council authorized the preparation of a plan and have directed the preparation of that plan to LRK. Once it was at a point of readiness for introduction, Borough Council introduced it within the past few weeks, and we are now at the stage where the planning board is undertaking a consistency study or report to determine whether or not it is consistent with the master plan. Then it goes back to council for second reading and adoption, and that is when the zoning takes effect. So generally speaking, as I mentioned, between South 10th bisected by South 11th and Maryland to the east, really the project area is dominated by open exposed parking lots. You have the not the Jiffy Lube, but Lubidol property that's the proper name of it. You got the Central Veterinary Clinic next door, a multifamily building at the corner, which is not a conforming use. You have a single family home, which is a conforming use, but actually in a different zone. And then on the east side, we have an office building with a rear parking lot. Actually, a lovely building in good condition. But there's a large wooded lot on the Maryland portion. There's some steep slopes there. So that's for existing conditions. In terms of the existing land use, as I mentioned, the Lubidol property is commercial audit focused, oriented. You have the office uses in the center of the block between South 10th and 11th, a multifamily building at the corner by South 10th and 11th, and the single family home, that's lot number 7. On the other block to the east, you have a commercial use and vacant land, which is a really wooded property. Almost the entirety of the project area is in a C commercial zone, which does not permit residential uses anywhere of any type. And then in the beige color, you'll see that lot 7 is in the single family RA zone, and that's a permitted use. This condition where the block face is about 150 feet deep from Route 27, at least on the south side of Route 27, is pretty consistent throughout the corridor up to Edison. On the north side, you'll see a lot of jagged lots, triangular shape, and that's because of the way the streets converge on Route 27 from the north. So what the master plan, what does it say about the this particular corridor? First of all, the 2019 master plan reexamination desire was to really create a desirable living and work environment for it, really to respect the unique town qualities of Highland Park. With regards to this specific corridor of the Raritan Avenue, we had a focus area of this corridor among 4 others in the master plan. And you'll note that in the survey results, we asked the question, how many of you would like to keep the corridor the same? Only 5% did, which means 95% of people want to change. And the common issues raised in the master plan during the public engagement process through open house and online survey results was that there were a number of unsafe crossings, lack of safe pedestrian facilities, bicycle infrastructure, business vacancy was rather high, there's exposed parking lots, there's absence of street trees, planters, benches, public art, other street furniture. Other concerns raised were really no sense of arrival, which it's more of a gateway feature, but I think that it's prevalent throughout the corridor. It's where how we come into Highland Park, and that condition extends down all the way to 6th Avenue. And then there's little mix of businesses and activities, and of course, no mixed use buildings. With regard to this specific corridor, again, one of the vision statements that was established was, and I'll just read it directly from the master plan, it's to evolve to meet current conditions and emerging trends by transforming outdated commercial corridors into safer, more attractive, and livable complete streets by enriching the mix of uses and enhancing the gateway to finally create that sense of arrival. And with regard to how do we achieve that, the strategies, several of them were put into all corridors, specific to the Upper Raritan Avenue corridor. Number one, well, I'm gonna read 3 of them, there's several others. One is transform Upper Raritan. It's pretty simple. Number 2, activate the corridor. And number 3, which I like to say this, like, make sure why are we doing this? Well, custom, tailor, infill, and use redevelopment to achieve that vision, utilizing site-specific redevelopment plans for uses desired by residents and to address varying property assemblages on a range of different block conditions. And this is one example, we have different block conditions, and this is sort of like the test fit of sorts. We could have done a redevelopment plan for the entire corridor or just done a rezoning effort. But since there was interest after the 2019 master plan was adopted to potentially develop some of these properties, with zoning does not permit the something that the community wants, there's the appropriate process to consider redevelopment to make that happen. And as part of the, not through the master plan reexamination ever, but the circle bicycle pedestrian plan noted this area as having a high incidence of traffic and pedestrian hotspots, including I believe there's a couple of fatalities recently, yes. One of the street section that was proposed for the Upper Raritan Avenue corridor is the introduction of bike lanes, and that a project is sort of moving forward on a different track. But that does speak to what we're trying to do in terms of a land use perspective, which is to create that frontage condition, which have buildings on the street, activate the sidewalk with uses, again, a land use perspective, add street trees, add a attractive streetscape, and ensure an active public realm. And going back to those photos that are in the plan, I just want to highlight one of the properties that we did look at the master plan as not really a case study, but like a what if. And we've done a number of those. You can see, actually in the prior slide, there were 4 little sites. Just as an example, these are the conditions of Upper Raritan, the sort of representative, the conditions of Upper Raritan Avenue. And one of the photos used is the top right photo. We see Rassa Jewelers on the left, and you see Luminol property in the corner. Well, during the master planning process, we took a look at that and we did a sketch study. What would it look like with an infill building? And this happened to be complete by coincidence. It's not even 2 years later, someone says, I want to do that. So what is the vision for the development plan? Again, it's a simple plan. I'm hoping this won't be a long meeting. So I'm already at the vision statement on this. Wait till we get to track C. That'll be a long meeting. So the vision for this particular project area contemplates creating safer pedestrian environment and shifting the corridor towards a mix of uses rather than just solely automotive focused commercial uses. Investment promotes a mix of limited ground floor commercial uses where appropriate and primarily upper floor residential uses. And I say primarily because we also are considering, well, if there's no market for commercial on the ground floor, at least we should give the flexibility of some residential on the ground floor. Stay tuned. And have primary and upper floor residential uses, and to keep the corridor activated by pedestrians throughout the day, and appropriate uses that mix well with each other. A mixed use or multifamily buildings are prioritized for infill development over single-story commercial uses, which are prevalent throughout the corridor. And then also try to preserve, or at least put in place, appropriate transitions between what would be potentially developed and the existing single-family residential uses to the south. Traffic calming and obviously public realm improvements are important for creating that livable boulevard we're trying to create with that street section you saw with regards to Upper Raritan Avenue. Obviously, there's really no role from a land use perspective we can play in what happens with the street section, that is the bike lanes and the road diet. But any redevelopment could include forming a street wall and activating the streetscape. That all plays a role in improving that pedestrian walk from at least the South 10 through Maryland Avenue. So, plan requirements. I'm going to go through land use, bulk regulations, development standards, and some public benefits. Quite simply, we included a diagram into the plan because we want to make it clear this is what the plan allows. Again, very, very simple. Keep the buildings up front, close to the street, parking in the back. We're trying to show that you can't build in the back anymore. If there's an opportunity for side street buildings, the concept is that that may not be appropriate because we're trying to really improve that transition from the rear parking lot to the neighboring buildings. Because at this point, it's in some cases already wooded, and I think there's already concerns of if there's any development in the future, will the trees go away? Well, the idea is that if the buildings are up front, you have sufficient parking in the back, there will be more than sufficient space to preserve and add into buffer. In terms of the land uses, multifamily apartments are going to be permitted, which is not permitted in the underlying zoning. This includes some apartments on the ground floor. There will be an allowance for common spaces, as we would imagine for a multifamily building, which would be lobbies, physical fitness, active recreation space, really to drive home to the point where just because there are apartments on the ground floor, you can still have active spaces on the ground floor, such as workout space and whatnot. There's still an allowance for a business use, and we would encourage through a redevelopment agreement to consider some limited commercial use if it's marketable. For example, we would encourage the developer on the Luton property to perhaps a corner store. The whole first floor doesn't have to be residential, otherwise you can have, as many of our planners see throughout the country, the 4-story mixed-use buildings. Everything's filled up on the 3 floors above it, but the first floor is empty of commercial space. So we're trying to avoid that situation happening and just allow for flexibility in zoning and really respond to the market. And again, continue to allow for a range of non-residential uses, which obviously in a mixed-use building won't have auto-oriented uses, but may have some limited retail, restaurant, takeout, or what have you spaces. In other words, we will allow what's currently allowed in C and the CBD zone as a potential limited use. In terms of bulk regulations, we try to right-size the setback regulations in terms of having really narrow front yard setbacks, but more importantly, build-to lines. Or in other words, a maximum distance from the front lot line, meaning you can't build a building too far back. You have to bring it forward. So that's part of the goal of bringing a building up front, parking in the rear, trying to eliminate curb cuts. Minimum setback standards are put in place for lot 3801, lot 7. That's the existing single-family home. The reason we put that in is because this is not a plan where we anticipate condemnation. First of all, it's done in a rehab destination. Condemnation is not permitted. If there is some assemblage of properties, the property owner who owns the home in lot 7 does not have to participate. If they choose to do so and sell it, or even be a joint venture, that's great. It can be part of another project next to the Luton Hall property. But the Borough Council and as a planner myself felt that it was important to protect the existing home and provide some minimum setbacks of 10, I think it's 10 feet. I'll have to check, it might be 20 feet. The idea is that if they do not want to participate and continue to live in that home, there will be proper setbacks to protect that home. The coverage requirements are reduced from what's allowed in the C zone. That allows for a compact building form, which conforms to that yellow rectangular box. So if you keep it up there about 60, 65, 70 feet deep, you're going to comply with your 40%. That's appropriate and impervious coverage has been reduced to really try to increase some impervious surfaces, which will help with stormwater drainage. Matching building height, this is not quite the downtown area near a train station, although there are 2 bus stops nearby. So in this case, the decision was, let's generally maintain what's the appropriate height in terms of what can fit on the site based on the parking requirements and the size of the lot. Generally feel that 3 stories is appropriate here. I want to add in the point where we could allow for a 4th-story pop-up. So imagine a stairwell elevator housing unit to allow for a person or residents to get to the 4th floor to utilize a roof deck of some sort. Just want to give the flexibility in case there's interest for that, but no living space. Some development standards in terms of parking. Again, this is not quite the downtown area near a train station. So 1.5 parking spaces is pretty conservative with an allowance of tandem parking if it works. Minimum of 1 bicycle parking space per residential unit, meaning they have to put, let's say a building has 10, 15, or 20 units, they have to put 10, 15, or 20 bike racks. The idea is that if this building is going to contribute to that transformation to bicycle-centric and pedestrian-safe environment, streetscape, they have to put in bicycle infrastructure, and that hopefully encourage people who use bicycles to live in a place like this. Parking has to be located in rear buildings, which is not that inconsistent with underlying zoning requirements. I think Highland Park does a good job in previous iterations of the zoning ordinance and master planning to discourage the parking in front. Otherwise, we try to encourage consistent architectural design of facades. Like, don't just design the front of the building, design all 4 sides, make an attractive building. And of course, something we put in all of our plans is we require that the developer incorporate sustainable design features. Reality is it's really not that hard to do. Any new building is going to be sustainable in a sense. So that includes readiness for photovoltaic systems, passive design features, sustainable material use, et cetera. So we put that in all of our plans. And the good thing is we've gotten feedback from developers like, well, yes, we're going to do that. But we make sure that's a minimum standard. In terms of public benefits, obviously we try to eliminate the curb cuts along the frontages of Raritan Avenue. That's why we build in front, park in the back, and access the parking from side streets. The streetscape improvements are important. With that building up front, which means that creates an opportunity to create consistent building walls, and importantly, add street trees, yard trees, street furniture, appropriate lighting, meaning that no wall pack space in residential scale lighting, and all of that supports the effort to, put a road guide in for Raritan Avenue. And of course, it's designed for accessibility. Again, any new building is going to have ADA compliance through the Fair Housing Act, as well as PRO Act, that's public right of way, accessibility guidelines. Anything in right of way and on the site will be new and be accessible. So that really is the gist of it. In terms of the master plan, as I already went through earlier in the presentation, that this redevelopment plan is almost a carbon copy of what we envisioned in the master plan. So I'm not sure how much more information you need from me to say this is consistent with the master plan. I will say through my report, incorporated by reference staff report, the plan is not consistent or doesn't conflict with the master plans of Edison and Piscataway city projects, because the redevelopment plan area is generally in the center of the community. Middlesex County does prioritize Route 727 corridor as a area of immediate focus for improvements, and the state plan encourages obviously reinvestment into suburban town centers. And Highland Park is an PA1 designated area. In fact, the entire town is, and this is appropriate and consistent with the state. So that really concludes my presentation.
Thank you very much. All right, now I'll open this up to comments from members of the board. Kalitra, go right ahead.
Okay, so thank you so much. That was a great presentation. I have 2 questions or 2 sort of considerations. The first is regarding land use. So I know our redevelopment plan, the master plan has a lot of plans for commercial and mixed-use businesses and the development of like bicycle lanes and things like that. And I think one thing that isn't part of our master plan that maybe we should kind of consider as a sort of new development, new concern or challenge that has presented itself since the primary school has started having full-time pre-K 3 and pre-K 4 students. And we've had to have the addition of trailers that have taken up significant amount of space on the playground. As we continue building and developing the town and adding more mixed-use housing and bringing more residents into the town, I wonder if we consider in the land use consideration for this redevelopment area, given its proximity to Irving School, that some of this space may be used to build additional space for the school, like satellite space for the school.
That's generally a good comment. I think we take that in advisement for future development plans, but I think that would require really looking at the master plan again in cooperation with the school board and the school districts, determine where the needs are. And if not, at least add public uses as a permitted use as of right, so at least allow that to happen.
Yeah, I mean, I think it would be a good idea to kind of loop them in, because I don't think that, we are not doing this redevelopment in a vacuum. It is kind of a holistic process where all of the pieces all fit together, and considering space for the school and our growing community. I think that when we're having these conversations and creating this vision for the broader community and for our future, that is something that we should take into consideration when we have the opportunity to build close to pre-existing buildings like the school. The second question that I had was you mentioned bike lanes and street trees and all these wonderful things for the traffic, but as you mentioned, that is a very high traffic area. It has also become kind of a little bit of a speedway where there's quite a lot of distance between the light there's a light at South 11th, North 11th Avenue, and then Duclos Lane. And we've had several fatalities over the last 10 years in that area. If there's any consideration to maybe adding an additional traffic light in between that, is that part of the plan?
That's not part of this plan, but as far as I understand, we're working with Terry and NJDOT to really advance the planning of the road diet. And I'm not sure, Councilman, if you have any information to add, but I know it's at least a concern of council, and it's being expressed to DOT to look at that. But to answer your question, this plan does not address that, other than encouraging, bringing the building up front, improving that streetscape, adding street trees, and really be consistent and compatible with the future road diet.
Yeah, I would just like to see if there's any ideas or anything that would be part of this development that would help to slow traffic in that area, because we've had so many problems in that area, in that stretch.
Well, let me just say that Matt Hale, our regular council member / board member, is not here with us tonight, but Jason is here from council, available to answer questions like that. So please feel free to jump in and respond to Phaedra's comments.
Sure, I'd love to. So on that point, I would just add that I specifically suggested that as part of the conversations for the road diet. I actually happen to live pretty much in this neighborhood, walk there to drop my youngest child off at Irving and walk back, and it is not a very pleasant experience. So pedestrian safety is just, I think, as a general matter, a priority for council, and certainly one for myself, especially with respect to this particular project, because I think just by making this sort of transformation, it's going to have natural calming effects. And I have grand visions for this just being a really nice gateway and really become part of like the great walkable feature that this town has to offer. And right now it is definitely not that. When you're trying to walk your little kid across Route 27, it's pretty scary. And there's a number of other families with little ones that are going back and forth. And I think there's more on the way soon, just from some friends that we have real close by. And it's something that we take very seriously, something that we're working on with DOT, and we'd like to see this work in conjunction with the Upper Raritan Road Diet. And I think that an additional streetlight makes sense. I'm not sure if that's necessarily the kind of thing that you would tie into this particular redevelopment project, but that is definitely something that I think that we are exploring. And in addition to a whole variety of pedestrian safety and traffic calming and road diet features. I
Thank
that
you.
answered, okay.
Yeah.
Sure, thank you.
I'm just kind of piggyback off of that exact point, actually. There's, as I was going through this, there's kind of, I think, a very comparable situation, kind of in the opposite direction for us, but a few years ahead of us. If you go up Hamilton out of New Brunswick as you head towards Franklin, you get kind of past the Garden Point apartments there, and it's very similar to this in that it's alternates. There's parts that are 2 lanes and parts that are 4 lanes, but it has that kind of some of these word speedway feel to it. But just over the last 5 years or so, there have been 4, maybe 5 buildings kind of similar to what's envisioned here, 3 stories, 4 stories kind of going up there. And it really changes the whole feel of that corridor. And one of the effects of it is that because there's just more people around, it has the effect of slowing traffic. And so that's one of my big concerns too, is just like, we know from the accidents that corridor is like the most dangerous part of town in terms of traffic.
Yeah.
And this kind of thing with the emphasis on the buildings up front, when you have that, it does have that effect. You put more people there, it does slow everything down. One of the comments I was going to make is that that's one of the things that I really like about this, is that it's right on that front part of the lot, and that's a well-documented effect that it has, and we can see that playing out just kind of in that New Brunswick, Franklin area. They're a few years ahead of us, but doing the same kind of thing.
Yeah, I can talk from experience, obviously not to the scale of the fatality, but when my first meetings here, I got sideswiped on Route 27. So I was like, this is not a good start to my tenure here, but I take it personally as well.
I think that,
I was wondering, in your conversation, did you talk to property owners? Is there interest in doing this type of projects? Let's say, I believe the blue ball is landfill, right? I mean, or.
Yeah, I think I mentioned earlier in the meeting, probably about too quick or passing too quickly. This was actually initiated by the property owner or redeveloper considering what can we do with the Blue Ball projects. They looked at the master plan as, this is something you want. Like, well, the zoning's not in place.
Like I said, I was just curious. It's nice to have a plan, but it's nice to have people that want to
Yes,
do it.
in this case, the plan is not completely driven
No.
by a developer, but we're trying
But
to.
there's interest in the area.
Correct, yes,
Oh, sure, great.
at least 2.
I just wanted to echo Kalidra and Dan's comments about this calming nature of buildings that are close to the street. The planning profession, even non-planners get this. It's great to hear, right? So that's really important, and I want to just echo that. The other thing, I think equally important, is the goal of eliminating curb cuts on Raritan Avenue. In the cross section in the plan you show a potential cross section for the street palm for Raritan, and you're showing bollards. Those bollards would not be possible because of the current curb cuts. Removing those curb cuts will allow DOT to put the bollards in, which would protect the cyclists and the new residents who live along the street. So it's really important to get rid of those curb cuts. And I think I would, really, if you're doing this and you're assembling those parcels and getting a redevelopment a project that removes those curb cuts, I think it's really important.
Absolutely.
So yeah, I just wanted to say, and then I think Kalidra mentioned the daycare or preschool. I think the ground floor does allow nursery schools and daycare centers, and there's a daycare center a couple of blocks.
Noah's Ark.
Noah's Ark. So I think there could be even the ground floor there could be a relationship with the school district, even if whatever things go on there, even with this plan or amend this plan to incorporate that could be really interesting.
So 2 things. One, you're right. So the private preschool could potentially do that. But I think to your point, perhaps it would be better if it was amended in the future for a public use.
Yes.
Otherwise, there's certainly nothing stopping the private preschool from collaborating with school districts.
So
Yes.
does daycare centers prohibit public daycare centers or just
Fact.
or preschool? Is that-
I mean, the town run.
In fact, there's a state policy embodied in statute of mixed delivery for preschool, which is the school district is supposed to actively cooperate with private providers.
Microphone, please.
Oh, sorry. The school district is supposed to actively cooperate, do due diligence to exhaust the resources of private providers before doing it through public facilities. So there's an active mandate ignored in many places, but nonetheless renewed in this year's budget statute. So yes, school districts can cooperate with private providers and must actually.
That's really interesting.
Thank you.
I had a question. The plan provides for 3 stories with a possible roof deck type 4th area that isn't residential. We've done a lot of redevelopment plans in town over the last few years that had 4 stories with a 5th step back.
Right.
What is the thought process on the difference with this development plan?
2 things. One, I think from a massing urban design perspective, 3 stories is probably more appropriate in this particular corridor. And the size of the lots, potential areas, probably do not allude to a lot of assemblage to really permit a large development like you would see in the core downtown area. That being said, it could accommodate 4 stories, but I think the driving factor is parking. And I think we're trying to balance parking and massing, especially since in these areas, in terms of Upper Raritan, the commercial areas are directly next to single-family homes, whereas in the core, you have deeper blocks, you have office buildings converging typically, and even multifamily uses in between the residential homes facing Magnolia and the core of the downtown. And of course, those bigger blocks mean bigger parking lots, which allows for greater height. So it's a balancing act of determining what realistically can fit. I think we felt that 1 parking space per unit probably would make sense here to allow for a greedy developer to just jam what they want in this town. So we try to just strike a balance in terms of urban design and what fits.
Stephen?
A few questions. So the redeveloper comes in, property owner comes in and says, okay, I've looked at the development standards. I want to build in accordance with the development standards. I want to build perfectly in conformity with the development standards. Where do they go?
In, I think it's section 7, they have to submit a concept plan to the redevelopment director and enter into a redevelopment agreement. Except for lot 7, the single family home, they can do whatever they want, just as long as it conforms.
And so it's not governed by section 42 of the municipal land use law, dealing with contributions to utilities and stuff.
I'm sorry.
It's not governed by the municipal land use law.
Like, it's
No, it'll still go through the municipal
whole
land
thing?
use process for site plan approval. If its concept plan is submitted for review for ensure it's consistent with the master plan, enter a redevelopment agreement, and then they submit for completeness review and go to the planning board for site plan.
So, so the ordinance, you talked about the ordinance at first floor residential as being something permissible, discretionary. Only if they can't fill the commercial spaces. I look at the ordinance and it doesn't seem to me to say that. It seems to say that multifamily, including first floor, is a use as of right.
Yes.
So, and is that true? Is that how we're to understand it?
Yeah, for this particular redevelopment plan, multifamily apartments are allowed, including on the ground floor.
Okay,
There's
I'm
no-
going to be clear. I'm in favor of that.
Okay.
You know, my view is we ought to be shrinking the commercial area to conform to the size of, to the market of the town. And I'm happy to see Upper Raritan redeveloped for residential because I think in the long run, that's more economically viable than having commercial out to the Edison border. So I think this is a good thing. Other than the rezoning, what does this plan do?
Other than rezoning, I think there's some consistent building wall architectural design features that require the curb cuts to be removed. I think the build to lines and setback requirements to reduce standards help really bring the scale of the potential building in line, better in line to what could be permitted.
But that could all be done with zoning.
It could be.
And site plan approval.
Correct.
Okay, I will say just in comment that we spent 3 years at this, doing what could have been done through rezoning in 6 months.
Don't disagree.
This seems to me using the municipal land use law to labor at something that, which rezoning, which all we've ended up with is rezoning. So other than that, this is something I basically approve of and will vote for.
To your point, I agree completely. In fact, I'm sure we can get this done in 3 months. It was a laborious process because there was discussions with potential developers about having buildings in side streets, and then before you know it, we're focused on the downtown, oh, it's a 2-year sub, let's re-up the contract, let's just get this done. And that's the point we're at. But in the future, and reality is, I think we talked about this with Terry, redevelopment director, is this is like a case study. If it works well, this could be a rezoning strategy for the entire corridor without.
I would love to see these development standards applied to the entire corridor. I don't know where you begin, whether Kent or someplace farther west, but I would like to see it all the way out to the Edison border.
So the guy's renting.
Anyone else from the board have comments?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I just have a couple of very small things. I don't know if it's appropriate to just, there are a couple places where the wording is either ambiguous or not quite, or I think there's a couple places where there might be typos.
Absolutely.
I don't know if it's amenable to, amending it a little bit. On page 15, it's in the PDF document, resolution number 7-24-196. It's page 24 in the PDF, but it's, if you look at the page number on the bottom, it's page 15 in the redevelopment plan. There's the table at the top, right under section 3.2, property ownership. It says all 8 properties are owned by different entities, but it's a handful of entities that own multiple properties, so that's just a little ambiguous in wording. And then jumping down to page, sorry, I would scroll to it. Here we go. It's page 36 in the redevelopment plan, which is page 45 of the PDF, right at the top of section A, under the 5.2 statement goals and objectives heading. It says eliminate those conditions that cause the project area to be considered an area in need of rehabilitation, and where applicable, an area in need of rehabilitation. I think the second one should be redeveloped.
And the second one should be redevelopment.
Which paragraph are you?
It's right under that 5.2 heading, bullet point A.
So not page
On
45, my page
page-
45 doesn't
It's
have that.
page 36.
Well, yeah, page
36.
36 in the redevelopment plan, page 45 in the PDF, sorry.
Right under 5.2, the again.
Subsection A.
So there should be redevelopment instead of rehabilitation.
Yes, the last word for the quote, end quote should be redevelopment. Good catch.
That's it. Thank you.
I put that there on purpose.
Just make sure we'll see who's really following along at home. Okay.
Yeah.
So that's page 36, just this one. Redevelopment, and then instead of all 8, the 8 properties, just to be more accurate.
So, as you mentioned earlier, this property currently is designated as an area in need of rehabilitation.
Yes.
Based on the ordinance that put the entire borough in for rehabilitation. So, we can talk a little bit about, I think we're familiar with the redevelopment designations and the incentives that a municipality may provide to a potential developer. You talk about the rehabilitation incentives here, a little different than the redevelopment ones, and then what's the thought of the borough in terms of offering those, and then what elements of the project would would, I guess, encourage the town to do that, I guess, follow me.
So that's really a policy decision between the borough, not even solely Terry Rivera, but really the mayor and council to consider, as a development entity, consider what benefits we offer, whether it's payment of taxes, sort of I believe a partial vacation of certain improvements in terms of tax assessment. I'm not privy to all the programs, but the same ones that are offered under the redevelopment statute. The only difference between rehabilitation and redevelopment is you can only do 5 years of payment of taxes under the rehab designation. You can go up to 30 years redevelopment, and of course, for redevelopment, you can use combination so long as the authorizing study declare that's combination. So it's the same type of programs. I wish I had more information. I'll certainly bring that to you with a primer of what benefits could be offered. My sense is in a project of this size, none would be considered, but that's not our call to make. That's not the planning board's or mine to take, offer recommendations. I think there would be some compelling interests to consider that, such as additional public benefits, which it could be, for example, repair all the sidewalks up to the school, perhaps. Those are things that could be considered, but has to be something that the redeveloper is interested in doing in return for some sort of financial incentive.
So, just so I'm clear, and I know that this is something that is decided not by anybody in this room, and something in the future, it's just a hypothetical. So hypothetically saying someone could get a tax abatement in exchange for a park or any type of tax abatement in exchange for fixing sidewalks?
In exchange for some other public benefit or improvements also. That's generally the rule, but I think in this town, well, not in this town, I would say from my experience, I've seen that communities are reluctant to use that, especially when there's market rate units and school children generation here. Other towns just give it out like candy.
Yeah.
I have one in Middlesex County in particular, but I'm not going to name them, but it's really a policy decision. I'm not an expert.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
Is there, in making that decision, is it our practice to do like a cost benefit analysis before offering something like that to a developer?
My understanding is that part of the cost analysis, opportunity costs, to really look at, is it worth doing it? The financial agreement entered between the redeveloper and the borough is part of that with the redevelopment agreement. I'm sure I'm not really part of that process, but my understanding that there's some sort of cost benefit analysis.
As a matter of law, if they give,
I'm sorry, I can't hear you.
sorry, as a matter of law, if they give a tax abatement, there has to be a cost benefit analysis.
Thank you.
And just in terms of affordable housing, is that, I didn't. Is that here, is there?
Page 54.
Is where is it? Sorry.
54 in the.
So that's standard language, to be fair. I'm not saying it punts the issue, but it's whatever is required underlying ordinance or land use element, the housing element, fair share plan is whatever triggers affordable housing will be required. So in this case, any building with 5 or more units will trigger affordable, from my understanding.
So then just so that we don't have a project yet, but obviously Massing looks like there'll be more than 5 units for sure in
Yes.
here, so that there would be some affordable housing is part of any project.
Absolutely. I think just to be honest with everybody here, if anyone has calls about this project, we tell them, expect to put in 50%. And be careful when you ask for a tax abatement. And that's really any statement that gets all about.
Okay,
Good to know.
all right, with that then, I will open up the meeting to public comment on this proposal. If you could please state and spell your name and your address, and then please begin.
Lois Leving, Lebbing, Maureen knows how to spell it, 100 North Second Avenue. So we're hearing about Upper Brereton, similar to what we heard about tracks A, B, and C. A is on for eminent domain tonight, and it was promised on page 29 that it was excluded from condemnation. A slight difference, but not much. So I'm saying I warn the residents that this is a possibility, since we see it happening in track A and B now, even though there's a residential aspect to the cleaners who have 2 apartments above. But this sounds wonderful, except when you drive into Carteret or Hamilton Street there in Somerset, where I grew up. It feels like a wall, if you don't want any green trees or any, but this is progress. Lego blocks. Apparently architects grew up with Lego blocks, so that's what we see. And that's what, it's not stone, it's not a castle, we don't have log cabins like Lincoln Log, some of us remember. But okay, so it's Lego block time. But where's the rain gonna go, people? We just had Ida after Cleveland Avenue was developed. 99 or 100% of this town flooded. Some part of somebody's basement got water or sewage. So I know that the municipal land use law says something about there must be sufficient drainage, water supply, electric supply, what have you. And I keep asking, did the town put in the new storm gutters? No, we can't. How can they put in new storm gutters? It'd be in everybody's backyard. So where's the rain gonna go when we have these wonderful new structures? Okay, so the front building is gonna be maybe the same as is there now, except higher. But if you're putting something in the back that isn't there now, and if you're not really thinking about schooling or parks or what are they called, detention ponds, where are they gonna go? I don't know if that's an engineering question or a planning question.
I think from a general perspective, detention basins are sort of last year's solution, but it will be a series of re-infrastructure elements.
Wait, is the last solution what?
Oh,
I would say retention basins as a single solution is last year's, 2 years ago, the new stormwater regulation that must be applied for compliance. With this particular project, each project is unique. Part of the plan, obviously with compliance with the site plan submission, would be reducing the coverage. So that would mean removal of pavement. So that helps in terms of some stormwater. In terms of the building footprint, which will be larger than the Luton Hall building, that creates an opportunity for slow release. So there's multiple components that are actually not even green. It's just really from a massing and simple common sense perspective that helps slow it down and allow for some opportunity. But generally speaking, that's how I respond. But Bruce and I will obviously work together when we do receive a site plan application and they have to be in compliance with rules. Bruce, I wasn't sure if anything else you want to add to that.
Okay, yeah, Luton Hall needs improvement. Also, this might be off course for this group, but the veterinarian, I heard the widow of Goldsmith is looking for someone to buy the business. Has Main Street, our Chamber of Commerce, reached out to help out some of these? As Ubrees is supposed to be moving at the end of the year into B&K on Woodbridge Avenue, a comparable 3-bay location, but nothing is started yet on that cleanup. That has to be all totally renovated, roof down to the tanks in the ground. So this is wonderful pie in the sky, but something is preventing aid from going forward, and it's gotta be a lot more than the cleaners, the problem there. If Ubrees is gonna be moving in January, I wanna see that. And sidewalks, so maybe I'll say sidewalks for the end of the meeting. Thank you.
thank you very much. All right, I don't see any other members of the public here with us tonight, so I'll close the public portion on commentary on this resolution. Last opportunity for any board members who want to make comments. All right.
So,
Okay. We'll let Jason make comments and then we'll go to Klutcher.
Sorry, I just wanted to make a couple of just like comments on a few of the items that the planning board members pointed out. So first, I needed to give a shout out to Dan. Those technical patches were pretty amazing. So thank you for that. I also want Stephen. I don't think we've met before, but I love your idea about rezoning all the way up through Edison on 27. So that's something to be taken under advisement. And then just to piggyback on the comments about like how this is going to be street facing developments, we're getting rid of the curb cuts, that's all going to be like traffic calm measures, but there's also the trees and like the street furniture and whatnot that this plan envisions, which will also further reinforce the traffic calm measures, which will be a real boon to pedestrian safety. And then also, I just wanted to take a point, like, so Klutcher's original point about the school district is really well advised. And I would just note, just off the cuff, like, I don't know that this project is of a scale that would really be able to provide something meaningful to the school districts, but as Stephen also astutely pointed out, like, there may be opportunities for private childcare providers to expand or to new ones to come to help fulfill the pre-K needs. But I just wanted to emphasize that, and I've been a part of this, just really talking closely with school board members and working together, and we are definitely in a really good place right now, in a cooperative place. So certainly we're going to be doing what we can to help them get to where they need. So based on some of the, I don't want to speak for them, I think some of their, they may have some of the space issues, there are some ideas for that. So, that is already being considered and looked at, but that's definitely a good point, and we promise to keep working with them to help make sure that their needs are considered and fulfilled. And I think that covered all the points that I had, so thank you again for letting me speak. Great points there.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for that, Jason. I would love to see moving forward in the plans that come before the planning board with regard to redevelopment, that we do take the needs of the schools, and not just Irving School, but Bartle, middle school, and high school, just kind of into consideration holistically while we are planning the town. We just don't leave them out.
Okay. So just to recap, I think on where the board has landed with the comments, we have the affirmative comment that page 15, the first word of all should be changed to the, to be more accurate, that the 8 properties are owned by different entities, not all 8 properties are owned by different entities. Page 36, the first paragraph A, the last word in that paragraph should read redevelopment instead of rehabilitation, and then advisory suggestions back to council that future redevelopment have additional considerations for public uses, specifically expanded school needs, and that area specifically in the Upper Raritan portion has become a bit of a traffic incident location, and to consider putting in additional traffic lights as we explore future road diets and traffic safety. And I think that's where we've landed on this. So with that, I will solicit a motion on.
Sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Can you confirm if there's any comments from the public online?
We don't participate with online commentary at this meeting. Yes, our
Agree.
online presence is advisory only. Do come down if you want to make comments to us at the board. We're happy and would very much welcome the town's participation. So again, with that.
You want to also mention, look, the council potentially looking into rezoning.
Oh,
changing
yes,
zoning
as well
standards.
as an advisory opinion to consider looking at rezoning the area in lieu of additional redevelopment plans, or not in lieu of, but as an alternative to additional redevelopment plans. All right, good. All right, with that, I'll solicit a motion to see if the board finds this plan with these suggestions and amendments not inconsistent with our master plan.
This has not been consistent with the master plan.
Second.
Seconded by Khalidra. We'll take a roll call vote, please.
Mr. Eisendorf,
Yes.
Ms. Hadhazy,
Yes.
Mr. Linares,
Yes.
Mr. Malay,
Yes.
Mr. Pearlman,
Yes.
Mr. Stern Cardinal,
Yes.
Mr. Williams,
Yes.
Ms. Ham.
Yes. Thank you very much, everybody, for input and consideration on that. With that, I'm going to open up the meeting once again to public comments on any items not on the agenda tonight. If anyone wants to be heard on anything else.
Not on the agenda tonight. Okay, Lois Loving, North Second Avenue. I had a question for decades for Mr. Koch, or the current engineer, who I never get to see at council meetings. Would you please define what is in the right of way? In residential and in commercial section, if there's a difference? Do you need this microphone? Does someone need the microphone?
No, I'm trying to understand the question. I mean, we are fortunate this evening that we don't have a large members of the public here joining us, so we have some flexibility in answering your question, but I'm not sure I understood the question.
The question is, right of way, ROW, that we see on site plans is often mistaken for something larger than I believe that it really is. So I'm asking an expert who I don't see in a council meeting to ask that question there.
So is the question, what is the definition of the restrictions in a right of way
Not
area?
restrictions, what is contained, how about that, in the right of way area?
I'm not an engineer. I admit I'm still a little confused, but I'm not an engineer. Bruce, do you need clarification on the question?
I think I do,
Wait, does he have a mic? Wait a minute.
We don't have multiple traveling mics, unfortunately.
I thought there was,
So the right of way generally is not from curb face to curb face. It extends beyond that. To see the width of it, you'll either look at a survey, a site plan, or first, anybody preparing one would look at the tax maps. And that gives the rights to the general public to access that area, which is why I could park in front of your house, or you could park in front of my house, and neither of us would ever have anything to say about it legally. But within that can be sidewalks, curbs, roadways, public utilities, trees. Not sure what you mean or exactly what you mean by what's there.
Well, you missed fire hydrants, but that's good. Sidewalks are mentioned. Okay, on the sidewalk subject. Do you happen to know, maybe this is a legal question, the difference between residential sidewalks, perimeter sidewalks, not on the property, in the residential sidewalks in the right of way versus sidewalks in the right of way in the commercial district?
what purpose?
I mean, is the question, is there a difference in accessible uses for commercial sidewalks versus residential sidewalks?
Actually, maintenance and repair.
For the maintenance and repair of those sidewalks, that seems like a question that would change based on the property, right?
Like, are you asking like who's responsible for maintenance of those sidewalks?
Let's say who's responsible for repair and snow removal. Yes,
Okay.
commercial, Stewart decision, 1981 versus, and current today, versus residential.
Well, I'm going to step in for a moment, because like you said, I do think that borders on a legal question and definitely a question that I think is outside our board's purview or expertise. So I appreciate the conversation. I think it's interesting and I can see it's going somewhere, but I think it is somewhere that's beyond what this board is able to answer for you this evening or cover in general.
So is there ever a time that Mr. Koch or someone from CME is scheduled to join a mayor and council meeting? They used to years ago, decades ago, have either the water department, DPW come in and address the public when the public showed up. Or I think the engineering showed up once or twice to answer questions from the public.
Well,
I've been dealing with sidewalk issues for some 20 years now, both on council and on the board. And I think one of the fundamental misunderstandings that people have is the sidewalk is not their property. It is their property, and that's what makes it their responsibility. Am I correct in this statement?
I think again, it depends on the properties, right? It'll vary by zoning
It's
and.
not their property.
I mean, but they are responsible for
The
it.
maintenance is, and that's determined by the borough ordinance. It can
We-
vary
We
from
actually
town
have,
to
we actually
town.
have, we actually have ordinances that govern this.
Pardon me?
We have ordinances that govern.
That's what I was saying. It's governed by, and every town treats it differently. I shouldn't say every town treats it differently, but every town will indicate in their ordinance, or should indicate in their ordinance, who is responsible for maintenance.
In a sense that it is, you know, even though it's a term that people don't like to use, but it is a case of, in a sense, eminent domain, saying that this section of sidewalk in front of your property will be maintained by the property owner. That's the existing laws as they stand on the park.
Or wouldn't it be more accurate to say that the property belongs to the property owner, but it's subject to the right
That's what I'm
of way
saying. So
imposed by the
that's,
zoning
you know, that's,
ordinance upon it?
I think there's a misunderstanding that it's somehow.
They don't own the right of way. No.
Not,
No.
right away is the wrong term, but it is subject to the restrictions imposed upon it through the ordinances that
maintain
overlay
that,
it.
you cut the grass, you maintain the sidewalks, you do whatever is necessary.
So then another question is, does the state law supersede, or the New Jersey Supreme Court supersede local?
We're way beyond our.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I think
we're-
that
we're-
is absolutely a
we're way
legal
beyond
discourse
our-
question
our
that's
knowledge
beyond
and-
what we can answer here. but I appreciate your faith in us that we could answer that. But I think that is a very multi-layered kind of question, and my favorite lawyer answer is, it depends.
It depends. Okay, so then, getting back to flooding, is there any answer from the planning board on what we were promised? Well, it was what Steve Nolan and Kluger was here and some Kim Hammond, and I said, hey, I called in and said before they left, 100 years experience between them. We count on this board to keep us safe from flooding. So is there something you have done or seen that has been done or heard that has been done that will prevent more additional flooding?
I will comment, having been on the board at the same time of all three of those persons, and I had the opportunity to observe their knowledge over time, and from seeing the plans that have come before the board, many plans, if not every one of them, have great concern for stormwater drainage and management. It's something that we are hyper-focused on as a board in general, because we are very aware of the water management needs within the town. We actually get mandatory training on stormwater management requirements at the state level. I'm sure we all remember that super fun training on the regulations on stormwater management. And I'm always looking at these development projects going, where's the water going to go? So when I look at the redevelopment plan we looked at tonight and see that the pervious coverage was reduced, that is a positive flag towards proper stormwater maintenance and management. Now, we can't speak further on that because stormwater management is a multi-step, multi-influence concept, and it will depend on the building and site plan that comes before us at the time, but it is something that we are very much focused on. It's something we're aware of when we look at these applications that come before us. Impervious coverage is always at the forefront of our thoughts and considerations, because where's the water gonna go as we build up these developments? So I hope that helps answer some of the questions about, yes, we think about this a lot.
But what is the town doing? But that's not your doing. Okay, that's different. Last subject, South Third Avenue. I think you guys had some part of maybe agreeing that it could be a closed project, plaza, or not?
I
South Third?
don't recall if we
It's part of
actively,
the redevelopment plan, yes,
Right,
but I don't know whether it has been approved by the state. It is I'm speaking for the council now, but not for all of South Third, for a certain section close to the avenue. That is to be, the idea is to create a plaza, but none of these plans have been finalized, nor has the state given approval. One of the things you always have to remember, Route 27 being a state highway, we are often at the mercy of the State Department of Transportation. I knew it took years to get our streetscape approved. So it's always something, but I do believe that is something that the council desires, yes. But we would have nothing to do with implementing it, only to, our job is to review things that come before us to see if they follow the law, essentially. That's our.
That they follow the law?
well, that they don't conflict with the master plan, not inconsistent with the master plan as the statute
So for
dictates it to us.
those of you who live on the north side, my question has been to the council, as Jason knows, and hasn't been answered. And maybe there's a reason why it hasn't been. When the fire, or let's say something happens along the train track, the north side. Now you've got Third closed. I'm told that when it was closed a few seasons ago for the temporary weeks, the fire truck started going that way, went through there, and actually on 4th, I think, or maybe it was on 4th, people had to get out of the way. The fire truck forgot, the driver forgot that's whichever one, 3rd or 4th was closed. So where would you like a substation on, don't you think a safety substation on the north side? A little branch, a little something in Garlotti's building, in somewhere over there, so that, and now we have a beautiful new girls' school. We have targets on the north side, and we have train tracks, and we have no instant police, first aid, or fire. That's what I hope you remember when you get asked maybe to close 4th or to close 2nd, whatever happens. Those are people there. I'm glad this is here. I'm glad that this is the police across the street and fire, but can't we have a little substation on the north side? And the triangle,
Thank you very much.
thank you.
All right, any last comments from the board this evening?
Not.
Oh, I'm so sorry. Let me just formalize. Seeing no one else, no other members of the public, I'm gonna close the public portion commentary for this evening. Go ahead.
I just want to confirm regarding the plaza, since it came up, Jason, can you just confirm, I think the state did give approval for it, right?
Yes.
Thank you.
But there's no plan yet, right? Just the, go ahead and make a plan, right? Not to put you on the spot.
Okay, I was on this for a minute. There is no formal plan just yet. There is just sort of a general concept, and that will be part of a process where we'll solicit public input. But we're not even at the stage where we're have any of those pieces ready just yet, but hopefully coming soon, because this is definitely something that I'm looking to prioritize again, having that mindset of trying to improve walkability in this town and create more public spaces. So it's something I'm eagerly looking forward to, but there is nothing really in place just yet. But we do have the DOT to confirm.
Which was a major first step. Okay, anyone else? All right, with that, I will solicit a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much, everybody.